not feel as bad because just feels a little more natural to stay in on a rainy day. So get everything set up. Enjoyed our time yesterday in Second Chronicles, and then together at for our service at 11 o'clock, and a lot of good communication between everybody. So that was a blessing. We are in Second Chronicles 21 through 25 today. Getting a little bit more of the kings here, and we've been reading some positive stuff, and it's going to get a bit negative, even though the author of Chronicles is writing to show how they can have hope. That still doesn't mean that, it's kind of hard to tell a positive story about some of these guys. So he tells the story anyway, but they're not all happy, and I think today's going to be a bit of a downer. We've got some evil, or some wicked kings that we're learning about. So, anyway, looks like we're getting people in here. Glad to have you with us. Good morning, Lindell and Kevin. And my internet's running a bit slow. Give me a second. There I am on Facebook here. And all right, and in your daily walk Bible, take a quick look at it if you've got it in front of you. They provided a chart for us that's, I think, pretty helpful for our story today, because it shows, so Jehoshaphat, he was a good king, though we know that he struggled with the relationships in his life, so he became friends with Ahab. And if you're looking at the little chart, so there's Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, and Ahab, king of Israel, and he's married to Jezebel. So Ahab dies, but Ahab and Jezebel had a son named, I think it was Ahaziah, but he marries a girl named Athaliah, and she becomes significant. So Ahab's daughter-in-law, Athaliah, marries Jehoshaphat's son that we're going to read about today, Jehoram. So that's an ancient way of conquering kingdoms, right? Well, I don't know if it's ancient. I think it still happens in some ways. Instead of having a war, let's have a marriage and see if we can get princes and princesses to marry from different kingdoms. Then there's influence there, and so Israel is infiltrating Judah, and lines are being blurred and things like that, which it would be good if if Judah and Israel came back together, but they are the motives here aren't clean. So we've got Athaliah and Jehoram, who have a son Ahaziah, and then Joash, and so on. So it kind of helps us understand. Also, if you look at our chart on the screen today, it's the same chart we've been using lately, but just wanted to point out that there's two Jehorams. Ahaziah in Israel has Jehoram, also known as Joram, and then Jehoshaphat in Judah had a son named Jehoram who went by Joram as well. So you got to just kind of keep the two guys separate because they had the same name. Good morning, Queen. Good to see you today. All right, so here we go in 2 Chronicles 21. Here we go. Now Jehoshaphat slept with his fathers and was buried with his fathers in the city of David. And Jehoram his son reigned in his stead. And he had brethren, the sons of Jehoshaphat, Azariah and Jehiel, and Zechariah and Azariah, and Michael and Shephatiah. All these were the sons of Jehoshaphat, king of Israel. And their father gave them great gifts of silver and of gold and of precious things, with fenced cities in Judah. But the kingdom gave he to Jehoram, because he was the firstborn. Now when Jehoram was risen up to the kingdom of his father, he strengthened himself, and slew all his brethren with the sword, and divers also of the princes of Israel. That's a bad way to get started in your reign. Such insecurity. Verse 5, Jehoram was 32 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem. And he walked in the way of the kings of Israel, like as did the house of Ahab. For he had the daughter of Ahab to wife, and he wrought that which was evil in the eyes of the Lord. Howbeit the Lord would not destroy the house of David, because of the covenant that he had made with David, and as he promised to give a light to him and to his sons forever. Now it says that Jehoram married the daughter of Ahab. And that is true in the sense that the way genealogies worked in ancient times was they skipped over Ahab's son. I get it all mixed up. Was it Ahaziah? I can't remember. It's on the chart. Let's check the chart. Check the chart. Yeah, Ahaziah, Ahab's son, then had a daughter, and that's who Jehoram marries. But I think that's how that works. So Ahab was actually her grandpa, but here it says that it was Ahab was the father. Anyway, you get the idea. They didn't always include grandfather; they would just say father in an ancestral way. That's what I mean. Verse 8. In his days, the Edomites revolted from under the dominion of Judah and made themselves a king. Then Jehoram went forth with his princes and all his chariots with him, and he rose up by night and smote the Edomites which compassed him in, and the captains of the chariots. So the Edomites revolted from under the hand of Judah unto this day. The same time also did Libnah revolt from under his hand, because he had forsaken the Lord God of his fathers. Moreover, he made high places in the mountains of Judah, and caused the inhabitants of Jerusalem to commit fornication, and compelled Judah thereto. And there came a writing to him from Elijah the prophet, saying, Thus saith the Lord God of David thy father, because thou hast not walked in the ways of Jehoshaphat thy father, nor in the ways of Asa king of Judah, but hast walked in the way of the kings of Israel, and hast made Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem to go a-whoring, like to the whoredoms of the house of Ahab, and also hast slain thy brethren of thy father's house, which were better than thyself. Behold, with a great plague will the Lord smite thy people, and thy children, and thy wives, and all thy gods. And thou shalt have great sickness by disease of thy bowels, until thy bowels fall out by reason of the sickness day by day. Ugh, not good. Moreover, the Lord stirred up against Jehoram the spirit of the Philistines, and of the Arabians that were near the Ethiopians. And they came up into Judah, and brake into it, and carried away all the substance that was found in the king's house, and his sons also, and his wives, so that there was never a son left him, save Jehoahaz, the youngest of his sons. And after all this, the Lord smote him in his bowels with an incurable disease. And it came to pass that in process of time, after the end of 2 years, his bowels fell out by reason of his sickness, so he died of sore diseases. And his people made no burning for him like the burning of his fathers. 32 years old was he when he began to reign, and he reigned in Jerusalem 8 years, and departed without being desired. Howbeit they buried him in the city of David, but not in the sepulchres of the kings. Ha! Whoa! A very unpopular king. Nobody liked him. They didn't even give him a good burial. They didn't care. They pretty much were happy he was gone. Man, he departed without being desired. That's kind of hard to deal with. Yeah, and I hope you're not eating breakfast right now. That was very graphic. Okay, chapter 22. And the inhabitants of Jerusalem made Ahaziah his youngest son king in his stead, for the band of men that came with the Arabians to the camp had slain all the eldest. So Ahaziah the son of Jehoram king of Judah reigned. 42 years old was Ahaziah when he began to reign, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. His mother's name also was Athaliah the daughter of Omri. He also walked in the ways of the house of Ahab, for his mother was his counselor to do wickedly. Wherefore he did evil in the sight of the Lord like the house of Ahab, for they were his counselors after the death of his father to his destruction. He walked also after their counsel, and went with Jehoram the son of Ahab king of Israel to war against Hazael king of Syria at Ramoth Gilead, and the Syrians smote Joram. And he returned to be healed in Jezreel because of the wounds that were given him at Ramah, when he fought with Hazael king of Syria. And Azariah the son of Jehoram king of Judah went down to see Jehoram the son of Ahab at Jezreel, because he was sick. And the destruction of Ahaziah was of God by coming to Joram. For when he was come, he went out with Jehoram against Jehu the son of Nimshi, whom the Lord had anointed to cut off the house of Ahab. And it came to pass that when Jehu was executing judgment upon the house of Ahab, and found the princes of Judah and the sons of the brethren of Ahaziah that ministered to Ahaziah, he slew them. And he sought Ahaziah, and he caught him, for he was hid in Samaria, and brought him to Jehu. And when he had slain him, they buried him, because said they, he is the son of Jehoshaphat, who sought the Lord with all his heart. So the house of Ahaziah had no power to keep still the kingdom. But when Athaliah the mother of Ahaziah saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed all the seed royal of the house of Judah. But Jehoshabeth, the daughter of the king, took Joash the son of Ahaziah, and stole him from among the king's sons that were slain, and put him and his nurse in a bedchamber. So Jehoshabeth, the daughter of King Jehoram, the wife of Jehoiada the priest, for she was the sister of Ahaziah, hid him from Athaliah, so that she slew him not. And he was with them hid in the house of God 6 years, and Athaliah reigned over the land. That's interesting, that the way Chronicles approached that story that we remember from Kings. Kings focused more on Jehu in that story, and how that he came and he drove furiously. Remember how zealously he pursued both of those wicked kings, and from God's directive executes them and all of that. But this one took it from the perspective of the kings, and they're just kind of licking their wounds and trying to get better, and not a whole lot is mentioned of Jehu. So just a different angle on that story was just given to us. I think sometimes chapters like this are hard to comprehend because they just mention so many people and so many relationships, even like what we just read in verses 11 and 12 of this lady Jehoshabeth and Joash and Ahaziah, Jehoiada, and you've got the priest, and there's all these relationships, and the way it's spoken is so quick and just matter of fact. If this was this could be a whole movie, right? If we could put it into a modern context, an entire movie where each character that we just read in those 2 verses would be developed. And so it would be interesting to just really comprehend all of those relationships and how they worked. But anyway, we'll move forward. Chapter 23. And in the 7th year, Jehoiada strengthened himself and took the captains of hundreds, Azariah the son of Jeraham, and Ishmael the son of Jehohanan, and Azariah the son of Obed, and Maaseiah the son of Adaiah, and Elishaphat the son of Zichri into covenant with him. And they went about in Judah, and gathered the Levites out of all the cities of Judah, and the chief of the fathers of Israel, and they came to Jerusalem. And all the congregation made a covenant with the king in the house of God. And he said unto them, Behold, the king's son shall reign, as the Lord has said of the sons of David. This is the thing that ye shall do. A third part of you entering on the Sabbath, of the priests and of the Levites, shall be porters of the doors. And a third part shall be at the king's house, and a third part at the gate of the foundation. And all the people shall be in the courts of the house of the Lord. But let none come into the house of the Lord, save the priests, and they that minister of the Levites, they shall go in, for they are holy. But all the people shall keep the watch of the Lord. And the Levites shall compass the king round about, every man with his weapons in his hand. And whosoever else cometh into the house, he shall be put to death. But be ye with the king when he cometh in, and when he goeth out. So the Levites and all Judah did according to all things that Jehoiada the priest had commanded, and took every man his men that were come to him in on the Sabbath, which were to come in on the Sabbath, with them that were to go out on the Sabbath, for Jehoiada the priest dismissed not the courses. Moreover, Jehoiada the priest delivered to the captains of hundreds spears, and bucklers, and shields, that had been King David's, which were in the house of God. And he set all the people, every man having his weapon in his hand, from the right side of the temple to the left side of the temple, along by the altar and the temple, by the king round about. Then they brought out the king's son, and put upon him the crown, and gave him the testimony, and made him king. And Jehoiada his son and his sons anointed him, and said, God save the king. Now, when Athaliah heard the noise of the people running and praising the king, she came to the people into the house of the Lord. And she looked, and behold, the king stood at his pillar at the entering in, and princes and the trumpets by the king, and all the people of the land rejoiced, and sounded with trumpets. Also the singers with instruments of music, and such as taught to sing praise. Then Athaliah rent her clothes, and said, Treason, treason! Then Jehoiada the priest brought out the captains of hundreds that were set over the host, and said unto them, Have her forth of the ranges, and whoso followeth her, let him be slain with the sword. For the priest said, Slay her not in the house of the Lord. So they laid hands on her, and when she was come to the entering of the horse gate by the king's house, they slew her there. And Jehoiada made a covenant between him and between all the people and between the king, that they should be the Lord's people. Then all the people went to the house of Baal, and brake it down, and brake his altars and his images in pieces, and slew Mattan the priest of Baal before the altars. Also Jehoiada appointed the offices of the house of the Lord by the hand of the priests the Levites, whom David had distributed in the house of the Lord, to offer the burnt offerings of the Lord, as it is written in the law of Moses, with rejoicing and with singing, as it was ordained by David. And he set the porters at the gates of the house of the Lord, that none which was unclean in anything should enter in. And he took the captains of hundreds, and the nobles, and the governors of the people, and all the people of the land, and brought down the king from the house of the Lord. And they came through the high gate into the king's house, and set the king upon the throne of the kingdom. And all the people of the land rejoiced, and the city was quiet, after that they had slain Athaliah with the sword. Wow, a lot going on today. Let me skip over here to Facebook, see if anybody's had any comments. Oh, yes, we have. Good morning, Janice and Jerry Lee and Kathleen. And Regina, Charlene. Good to see you guys. You guys are funny. You guys are out of control. Okay, so let's jump into chapter 24. We'll do some takeaways here in a minute. Chapter 24. I was going to say that it mentions the city was finally quiet. An evil queen wasn't reigning, and for a brief time, there was a little bit of rest. And the thought that came to my mind is freedom isn't free. And you think of all that went down, all that happened in order to obtain that little bit of quietness in the city. I don't like people being thrown in jail. I don't like war. I don't like all of that. But in a sinful world, just about the only way you're going to get peace in a society is if criminals are taken care of. And so in this case, the criminal was leading the country. So, chapter 24. Joash was 7 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 40 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name also was Zibiah of Beersheba. And Joash did that which was right in the sight of the Lord all the days of Jehoiada the priest. And Jehoiada took for him 2 wives, and he begat sons and daughters. And it came to pass after this that Joash was minded to repair the house of the Lord. And he gathered together the priests and the Levites, and said to them, Go out unto the cities of Judah, and gather of all Israel money to repair the house of your God from year to year, and see that ye hasten the matter. Howbeit the Levites hastened it not. So the king wants the temple to be fixed. And so he tells the Levites, okay, so I'm going to provide some money for you, and I want you to get this job done quickly. Okay, so work quickly. And they did not do that. Verse 6. And the king called for Jehoiada the chief, and said unto him, Why hast thou not required of the Levites to bring in out of Judah and out of Jerusalem the collection, according to the commandment of Moses the servant of the Lord, and of the congregation of Israel, for the tabernacle of witness? For the sons of Athaliah, that wicked woman, had broken up the house of God, and also all the dedicated things of the house of the Lord did they bestow upon Balaam. And at the king's commandment they made a chest, and set it without at the gate of the house of the Lord. And they made a proclamation through Judah and Jerusalem to bring into the Lord the collection that Moses the servant of God laid upon Israel in the wilderness. So here's your first offering plate. And all the princes and all the people rejoiced, and brought in and cast into the chest until they had made an end. Now it came to pass that at what time the chest was brought unto the king's office by the hand of the Levites, and when they saw that there was much money, the king's scribe and the high priest's officer came and emptied the chest, and took it, and carried it to his place again. Thus did they Thus they did day by day, and gathered money in abundance. And the king and Jehoiada gave it to such as did the work of the service of the house of the Lord, and hired masons and carpenters to repair the house of the Lord, and also such as wrought iron and brass to mend the house of the Lord. So the workmen wrought, and the work was perfected by them, and they set the house of God in his state, and strengthened it. And when they had finished it, they brought the rest of the money before the king and Jehoiada, whereof were made vessels for the house of the Lord, even vessels to minister, and to offer withal, and spoons and vessels of gold and silver. And they offered burnt offerings in the house of the Lord continually all the days of Jehoiada. But Jehoiada waxed old, and was full of days when he died, 130 years old was he when he died. And they buried him in the city of David among the kings, because he had done good in Israel, both toward God and toward his house. Now after the house of Jehoiada came the princes of Judah, and made obeisance to the king. Then the king hearkened unto them. And they left the house of the Lord God of their fathers, and served groves and idols. And wrath came upon Judah and Jerusalem for this their trespass. For he sent prophets to them, to bring them again unto the Lord. And they testified against them, but they would not give ear. And the Spirit of God came upon Zechariah the son of Jehoiada the priest, which stood above the people, and said unto them. Now, is this Zechariah, guys, that later on, one of the prophets, Zechariah, that wrote the book of Zechariah? I'm assuming that's who we're reading right now. And he said, Thus saith God, Why transgress ye the commandments of the Lord, that ye cannot prosper? Because ye have forsaken the Lord, he hath also forsaken you. And they conspired against him, and stoned him with stones at the commandment of the king in the court of the house of the Lord. Thus Joash the king remembered not the kindness which Jehoiada his father had done to him, but slew his son. And when he died, he said, The Lord look upon it, and require it. And it came to pass at the end of the year, that the host of Syria came up against him, and they came to Judah and Jerusalem, and destroyed all the princes of the people from among the people, and sent all the spoil of them unto the king of Damascus. For the army of the Syrians came with a small company of men, and the Lord delivered a very great host into their hand, because they had forsaken the Lord God of their fathers. So they executed judgment against Joash. And when they were departed from him, for they left him in great diseases, his own servants conspired against him for the blood of the sons of Jehoiada the priest, and slew him on his bed, and he died. And they buried him in the city of David, but they buried him not in the sepulchres of the kings. And these are they that conspired against him, Zabad the son of Shimeath, an Ammonitess, and Jehozabad the son of Shimrith, a Moabitess. Now concerning his sons, and the greatness of the burdens laid upon him, and the repairing of the house of God, behold, they are written in the story of the book of the kings. And Amaziah his son reigned in his stead. I just keep on thinking throughout all this that it's going to be helpful for us to really remember some of these stories as we start reading the prophets. As you start reading the book of Zechariah and all of these others, because these are the stories in which those books are set. And so I'm excited. I feel like we're getting a deeper understanding of this history together. And so as we read those, I think that those are going to be some rich times of study. So, all right, let's jump into chapter 25. Amaziah was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Jehoiadan of Jerusalem. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, but not with a perfect heart. Now it came to pass, when the kingdom was established to him, that he slew his servants that had killed the king his father. But he slew not their children, but did as it is written in the law in the book of Moses, where the Lord commanded, saying, The fathers shall not die for the children, neither shall the children die for their fathers, but every man shall die for his own sin. Moreover, Amaziah gathered Judah together, and made them captains over thousands and captains over hundreds, according to the houses of their fathers, throughout all Judah and Benjamin. And he numbered them from 20 years old and above, and found them 300,000 choice men, able to go forth to war, that could handle spear and shield. He hired also 100,000 men, mighty men of valor, out of Israel for 100 talents of silver. But there came a man of God to him, saying, O king, let not the army of Israel go with thee, for the Lord is not with Israel, to wit, with all the children of Ephraim. But if thou wilt go, do it. Be strong for the battle. God shall make thee fall before the enemy, for God hath power to help and to cast down. And Amaziah said to the man of God, But what shall we do for the 100 talents which I have given to the army of Israel? So if you're tracking here, the king has paid some of Israel's army to come help him in this battle, and he pays 100 talents of silver. And then this man of God, unnamed right now, tells him, hey, go to this battle, but don't go with Israel because God is against them right now. So they're not going to help you. They're going to actually cause you to lose this battle. And Amaziah immediately goes to, but man, that money, it was non-refundable, so I can't get my money back. And the man of God answered, the Lord is able to give thee much more than this. You're better off to just leave it. So move on. Verse 10. Then Amaziah separated them, to wit, the army that was come to him out of Ephraim, to go home again. Wherefore their anger was greatly kindled against Judah, and they returned home in great anger. That was an insult to them. Verse 11. And Amaziah strengthened himself and led forth his people, and went to the valley of Salt, and smote the children of Seir 10,000. And other 10,000 left alive did the children of Judah carry away captive, and brought them unto the top of the rock, and cast them down from the top of the rock, that they all were broken in pieces. But the soldiers of the army which Amaziah sent back, that they should not go with him to battle, fell upon the cities of Judah, from Samaria even unto Beth-horon, and smote 3,000 of them, and took much spoil. Wow. What a bunch of thugs, right? So they got their money, they got their 100 talents of silver, but they felt insulted when the king said, you know what, actually, I don't want you to fight with us. So on their way home, they decided, well, we're just going to attack their cities then and spoil them. That's crazy. So verse 14. Now it came to pass after that Amaziah was come from the slaughter of the Edomites, that he brought the gods of the children of Seir, and set them up to be his gods, and bowed down himself before them, and burned incense unto them. Wherefore the anger of the Lord was kindled against Amaziah, and he sent unto him a prophet, which said unto him, why hast thou sought after the gods of the people, which could not deliver their own people out of thine hand? It's a good question. And it came to pass, as he talked with him, that the king said unto him, art thou made of the king's counsel? Forbear, why shouldest thou be smitten? Then the prophet forbare, and said, I know that God hath determined to destroy thee, because thou hast done this, and hast not hearkened unto my counsel. Then Amaziah king of Judah took advice, and sent to Joash the son of Jehoahaz, the son of Jehu king of Israel, saying, come, let us see one another in the face. And Joash king of Israel sent to Amaziah king of Judah, saying, the thistle that was in Lebanon sent to the cedar that was in Lebanon, saying, give thy daughter to my son to wife. And there passed by a wild beast that was in Lebanon, and trode down the thistle. I just love that little parable. Oh, man. Of course, so Judah made Israel mad. Israel attacks Judah's city on their way home. And now Judah is trying to diplomatically make peace here. And so can we have a face-to-face? Let's just have a little chat. Let's meet at Starbucks and let's just work this thing out. And Israel is still hot under the collar and says, there was this little thistle who went to a big giant cedar tree in Lebanon and said, hey, can I marry your daughter? And then this wild beast came by and stood on it and broke it. So, and you're the thistle, and I'm the tree, and you're nothing to me. So no, we can't have a meeting. I feel like that would just be a great way to answer somebody. It's not a very Christian way to answer somebody, but the humor in me wants to do that sometime when somebody invites me to a meeting. Hey, can we have a meeting? And just tell them some parable like that. But that would just be rude. Verse 19. Thou sayest, lo, thou hast smitten the Edomites, and thine heart lifteth thee up to boast. Abide now at home. Why shouldest thou meddle to thine hurt, that thou shouldest fall, even thou and Judah with thee? But Amaziah would not hear, for it came of God, that he might deliver them into the hand of their enemies, because they sought after the gods of Edom. So Joash the king of Israel went up, and they saw one another in the face, both he and Amaziah king of Judah, at Beth-shemesh, which belongeth to Judah. And Judah was put to the worst before Israel, and they fled every man to his tent. And Joash the king of Israel took Amaziah king of Judah, the son of Joash, the son of Jehoahaz, at Beth-shemesh, and brought him to Jerusalem, and brake down the wall of Jerusalem from the gate of Ephraim to the corner gate, 400 cubits. And he took all the gold and the silver, and all the vessels that were found in the house of God with Obed-Edom, and the treasures of the king's house, the hostages also, and returned to Samaria. And Amaziah the son of Joash, king of Judah, lived after the death of Joash, son of Jehoahaz, king of Israel, 15 years. Now the rest of the acts of Amaziah, first and last, behold, are they not written in the book of the kings of Judah and Israel? Now after the time that Amaziah did turn away from following the Lord, they made a conspiracy against him in Jerusalem, and he fled to Lachish. But they sent to Lachish after him, and slew him there. And they brought him upon horses, and buried him with his fathers in the city of Judah. Oh, just a second. Huh. Are we still on? It looks like I had a mistake on the church page, guys. Why isn't it working? Are we working right now? Maybe that was a glitch. I don't know what just happened. Doesn't look like it's working, but I don't really know. Well, I'm going to finish up, and if it's working, it's working, I guess. Looks like Facebook's still up. That's weird. I wonder if that was just me. Anyway, all right, so what are your takeaways? Some things you learned today? One just thing that just keeps on kind of jumping out at me, not necessarily a spiritual lesson, at least that I'm gathering, just something I keep on seeing, is every time there's some sort of a conflict, or it just seems like the house of God is like this toy that the kids keep on fighting over, and it's sad that it just keeps on getting plundered. And the kings of Judah often, when they need some leverage in some sort of a war or negotiation or something, it's like they go into the house of God and they take all the treasures out of it, and they use that as to bribe or to satiate a bigger enemy or something like that. And then whenever Judah's conquered, of course, the house of God gets spoiled. And you kind of watch, from the glory of the building that Solomon made, even though it keeps on being rebuilt, it just kind of has this downward spiral, and it just never seems to return to the glory that once was there. That glory fades. One of the most obvious ones was the Solomon's shields of gold that Jerry Lee was interested in a while back. How those were taken away, and then they replaced them with shields of, what was it, copper? Can't remember what they replaced them with, but anyway, it just seems like the glory of that temple just keeps on plummeting downhill. But my takeaway is actually from, where is it? I think chapter 24, and it says, so Joash, this 7-year-old seven-year-old king, it said that he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord all the days of Jehoiada the priest. So he had a really good mentor, and Jehoiada helped him do the right thing. And Jehoiada lived quite some time, but he couldn't live forever, and he was a lot older than the king. So when Jehoiada dies, immediately Joash stops serving God, and it goes south from there. And so my takeaway is, I guess, twofold. We need to find ourselves people who can disciple us or mentor us, like this king had this priest who was a spiritual leader in his life, and that was important. But on the other side of that, you can't always ride the coattails of those who you are being discipled by or your mentors. At some point, you've got to make it your own, and obviously Joash did not do that. So I think that's kind of for me right now. But mostly, I'm thinking of that as the leader of of people, especially I'm thinking of my kids, and I don't want their story to be, Elliot did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, so long as he was in Keith's house. I want him to do right even when he's not under my leadership and my parenting. And so, anyway, I want to shepherd his heart right. So that's my takeaway. What about you guys? Kevin, Jehoiada lived 130 years. God promises long life for faithfulness to him. Yeah, yeah, that's pretty cool. He really blessed that priest, didn't he? Ah, Jerry, those were shields of brass. Thank you. Yeah, copper is still relatively valuable, more valuable than brass, right? All right, guys. Well, I'm going to run. Got a lot to do today. I hope you're doing well, and we will see you tomorrow morning. Let's have a word of prayer. Father, thank you so much for your word. I pray that we would learn from these lessons. Lord, as I was thinking about that, I pray that I would be able to lead people under my authority well, like Jehoiada did, but help me to lead them in ways that would encourage them to continue in those things even when I'm gone. And I just pray that you just bless our church. Lord, I pray for the family of our missionary brother Sarah, Lord, as they are grieving his loss. And I know that he's happily with you today. But Lord, they're still grieving and mourning for his loss. And thank you so much for his life dedicated to you in ministry. I pray that you just bless his family and help them through this time. I pray this in the name of Jesus.